Hi, I'm Wes, the Explosion, and this is the Backlog. This week, I continued with the Castlevania collection as I said I would, this time with, surprise surprise, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Unlike the first game, this one seems more like an actual Metroidvania, all the areas being interconnected with the upgrades you collect making things easier to traverse. Since I typically like this genre, you'd think that this was an improvement, but wow, this game has problems. The big thing is something that most early entries in the category suffer from, and that's a lack of any sort of map. The original NES Metroid and Shantae for the Game Boy Color are both titles that I have not bothered beating, and the main reason was the absence of any in-game method for keeping track of where everything was and how one screen connected to another. In Castlevania 2, I just kinda traveled to the right, making a few choices when breaks in the path came up, until I hit a spot where I couldn't go any further. After that, I went back a bit, wandering around until I got to what I think was a dungeon. I then stumbled through it, and when I got to the objective, I had no idea what I was supposed to do, which led to the other problem, a lack of an instruction booklet. Most of what I did in this game felt directionless, and I never had a clear idea of what I was supposed to do, other than kill Dracula eventually, probably. While I'm sure a manual wouldn't have told me much more than the basics, that certainly would have been a good starting point, and maybe if there was a list of some of the basic items I could pick up, I would have known what to look out for. As it were, when I finished the dungeon, I couldn't collect the reward. I looked up a walkthrough, found the item I needed to get my prize, and I just couldn't seem to get it to work. I swear I hit all the buttons both in-game and in-menu. Beyond that, there's a few other little annoyances, such as there being a day-night cycle. When it gets dark, enemies take twice as many hits to fell, which means that you really have to lay on the attack button to take them out. You also can't interact with anyone in town at night, so if you have business there, you need to either just kill some time or aim to get whatever you needed later on. As you can probably guess, I didn't get through this one, and I probably won't. Maybe if I clear every other title in the collection, I'll go back and either read or watch a walkthrough to beat it, just so I can say that I cleared the whole thing, but just thinking about it kinda makes me really hope that at least one other game in the pack makes me throw it down in disgust. I kinda wish this would get an updated remake because I really do not like Metroid but love Zero Mission, and I think this could benefit from the same treatment. Too bad Konami doesn't make games anymore. Then, even though I said I'd only do one a week, I was feeling unsatisfied, so I jumped right to the last game on the collection, the spin-off Kid Dracula. This is a title that desperately wants to be a better game. Mostly Mega Man, but also a little Super Mario Bros. 3, with maybe a few chunks of some other things mixed in. One of the reasons I went right for this one was because it was a platformer, so I thought it would be an easier sell, but nope, that was a poor assumption. So how's it like Mega Man? Well, you jump and shoot. You throw fireballs, which you can have 3 of out at once, and you can also hold the fire button for a charge shot. And while the order is linear, you get an extra weapon that you can swap out that will replace your charge shot each time you clear a stage. And while most of the enemies don't have a weakness per se, some weapons do seem to work much better against them than others. There's a ton of other tropes and obstacles reminiscent of Mega Man that I'm not going to go over, but to just give you a taste, there was a late section where I had to run from a group of enemies that, while not med-shaped, were wearing Japanese construction hats, and then had to fight a giant robot that just had its shoulders and head in frame. Instead of beating it by throwing myself at its face and top spinning, its head came off and attacked me by drilling down, thus spinning itself. As for Mario 3, the airship levels. There's a stage that looks exactly like the airship levels from Mario 3, complete with enemies that fire cannonballs. Maybe it's too much of a stretch to claim that aesthetic for Mario, but hey, maybe I was just so desperate to be playing a better game that my mind wandered. So what was so bad about it? First is just how poorly it controls. It just feels awkward a lot of the time, Kid Dracula feeling just a bit heavier than you would expect him to. He can shoot left, right, and up, but there's also several times when it seems like he should be able to shoot down, maybe even diagonal, with how some of the enemies are placed. Then there's the new obstacles and mechanics that get thrown in, oftentimes without enough of a chance to figure out and learn before you get punished for not handling it right. Some things seem to work or spawn randomly, so it can also be hard to even learn some sections. And then there's just some stuff, a lot of stuff, that just seems to cross from difficult to unfair. There's a boss in the pyramid stage that if you get hit by is pretty much an insta-kill that I refuse to believe they playtested. The final level has no checkpoints, so you have to do the whole thing in one go. This was another example of me using save scums to get through a title that is otherwise unreasonable, and I honestly would probably have punted this game into the trash on the first level, specifically the roller coaster part, if it wasn't for this feature. At the end of each level, it makes me gamble for extra lives, and I always hate games of chance in these. This game was a mistake, and its only redeeming feature is that it kinda makes me dislike the few classic Mega Man games I hate a little less. Mega Man 2, maybe the security lasers and Boo Beam Trap aren't quite as egregious as I thought they were. Mega Man 5, while the randomly falling crystals are kinda whack, you can kinda use the star barrier to compensate, so maybe it's more a matter of planning than RNG. And Mega Man 10, screw you. Putting an underwater, pixel-perfect jump right in the middle of a Wily stage just so you can burn through all your lives right at the start of a checkpoint and get yeeted back right to this beginning, making you do it all over again is total bull and you should feel bad. As for Kid Dracula, how about you just don't? And since this episode is a bit light, let's talk about my Min Amiibo. I now understand why people hate fighting her so much. Try to rush her and she'll bop you. Try to come at her with aerials and she can hit you with an up smash or jump and punch. Try and outrange her and you'll probably lose the exchange, but there's a few characters with a few attacks that you can do it with, though she still has her reflector. I leveled her up to 50 and the last 10 were really difficult. I did not win all of the matches, especially the last few like I do with most of my amiibo, but I do feel like I learned a lot. Both with how to play my main Mega Man, and of course my secondary, Min herself, so it was worth it. I might start using my amiibo to practice more. From what I understand, a fully leveled amiibo is basically a level 9 with powered up attacks, with a few tricks they learn from you mixed in. So it should be much better training than just what you can go up against normally in game. Plus the human players I play against don't actually cover the full roster, so I could use my little hunks of plastics to expand the characters I'm familiar with. That would also help justify all the money I poured into my collection as well, which is staggering. Oh, and the Min Amiibo looks great, in case you're wondering. And then something curious happened. I was streaming Animal Crossing New Horizons for what I had intended to be the final time, and some people came into the stream and visited the island. Not a lot, mind you, only 2, but it was still engagement, more than I get most nights, so I might not be totally done with the game. I think I will still stream more Mega Man and other more challenging and torturous games during the week because I hate myself and also want to sharpen my skills, but I might make Saturday my relaxing stream night and give myself a break with Animal Crossing and games with similar vibes. It has kinda reached the point where I don't mind playing New Horizons, I just kinda need an excuse to do so, and this seems as good a one as any, so I guess I'll be capping off my weeks with a KK Slider concert, at least for the near future. Speaking of streaming, I think I picked out what game I'm gonna play next week. I picked up Neptunia X Senran Kagura Ninja Wars for Switch. Never got into the first series, but I have a lot of fun with the second's hack and slash gameplay, among other things. A lot of the games I've been playing haven't really been gelling with me, so I figured I'd just grab something that I wanted to mess with, and hey, if it's a dud, at least there will be fan service, right? Not sure if I'll stream enough to get through it by next episode, but I also picked up a game called Tonche that I should be able to get finished with. It's a beat 'em up that feels like you're trying to beat down a wall to get to an even thicker wall with a few more layers beyond that, so what little I've played has been less than ideal, but I think I can get to the credits. It might be part of the reason I picked up the booby game though. So, the backlog was at 108, but since the games I beat were part of a collection, nothing comes off, and I added 2 more on, so back to 110, so I slipped a bit this week. But hey, I'm not gonna bar myself from buying titles that interest me just because I already have a lot to get through, so it'll happen. For now though, thanks for watching, maybe subscribe if you enjoy this sort of thing, and perhaps I'll see you in the next one.